Success doesn't wait. It doesn't stall for hesitation. It doesn't beg to be noticed or ask politely to be pursued. It's not hiding, but it is reserved. Reserved for those who are willing to move with urgency, yet with purpose. For those who have decided that their life matters now. Not someday, not when things are perfect, but now, today, this hour, this breath. Success is not found. It's forged, and those who succeed quickly are not lucky. They are ready. They have turned their lives into instruments of precision. Each habit a sharpened blade, each day a chisel carving purpose from stone. So you want to rise fast? Then understand this: speed is not chaos. Speed is clarity in motion. It's momentum born from alignment. And there are habits then of theme, each one small in size, but massive in consequence. They are not optional. They are foundational. And if you carry them daily, success won't be able to outrun you. 1. Get ruthlessly clear on what you want. Clarity is not a luxury. It's not a nice to have. It's the price of admission to every room where transformation lives. If your vision is vague, your life will be average. If your goals are soft, your results will be forgettable. If you can't tell me what you want with fire in your voice and steel in your eyes, then don't be surprised when the world hands you leftovers. Because life is not confused. Life responds to precision. It doesn't reward the unclear, the hesitant, or the vague. It rewards the committed. It rewards those who have made the decision, this is who I am, this is what I'm building, and nothing less will do. You don't get what you kind of want. You don't get what you casually wish for. You get what you are ruthlessly, unapologetically clear about. So let me ask you again, more directly. What do you want? Not the polite version. Not the socially acceptable answer. Not the dream you downsize to fit into other people's comfort zones. What do you really want? Do you want power? Say it. Do you want peace? Own it. Do you want wealth, influence, legacy, freedom, fire in your chest every morning? Then stop whispering your desires like they're sins. Stop diluting your hunger to protect someone else's insecurity. Stop making your dream more comfortable for people who don't even believe in their own. The world doesn't need you humble, it needs you honest. Because clarity starts where your excuses end. Clarity begins when you stop negotiating with average. Clarity is violent to distraction. It is the end of maybe, the death of someday, and the beginning of now. See, clarity doesn't ask the world for permission. It tells the world what's coming. It doesn't wait for signs. It becomes the sign. And it doesn't come easy. It comes from sitting with yourself, from shutting out the noise, from confronting the uncomfortable truth that you've been busy doing everything except deciding what actually matters. So you must strip it all away. The obligations, the distractions, the fake goals you inherited from other people's agendas. Strip it down to the raw, burning truth of what your soul craves. And once you find that spark, you protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. The moment you get clear, life gets loud. Opportunities start showing up. Connections align. Doors open. But only when your direction is non-negotiable. Because clarity is magnetic. It draws power to it. And confusion? Confusion repels everything that's trying to find you. People don't follow the confused. They follow conviction. Money doesn't flow to uncertainty. It flows to certainty executed with excellence. So get ruthless. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Feel it like it's already done. And then, every move you make, every word you speak, every relationship you keep, ask one question. Does this align with the life I said I wanted? If the answer is no, let it go. Ruthlessly. Because the gap between you and your goals is not time. It's tolerance. You've tolerated confusion. You've tolerated low standards. You've tolerated people who drain your clarity like a leaking faucet. And clarity requires that you close the leak. Tighten your circle. Elevate your yes. Sharpen your no. Because when you're clear, everything changes. You walk different. You talk different. You think in strategy, not survival. You build from identity, not insecurity. You no longer react to life. You design it. And when the world tries to pull you off course, you don't flinch. Because your destination isn't up for debate. You wake up each day like a guided missile. Locked in, dialed in, unshakable. Your energy is no longer scattered. It's aimed. And aimed energy pierces through every obstacle. So, let the average stay comfortable. Let the doubters stay noisy. Let the world stay distracted. You rise. You build. You move with militant clarity. Because the world bends to the bold. It moves for the decided. And it bows to those who are ruthless with their direction. Clarity is not a step in the process. It is the process. And once you have it, the rest is obedience. To the vision. To the call. To the person you know you were born to be. What do you want? Get clear. Get loud. Get moving. And don't you dare look back. Because once clarity is locked in, there is no room left for excuses. You now know what you want. Not because someone handed you a map, but because you burned away the fog and stared your future in the eye. Now comes the part that separates the dreamers from the doers. Discipline. Clarity without discipline is like aiming a loaded arrow and never releasing it. It's potential without movement. It's fire with no direction. And you weren't given that clarity to sit on it. You were given it to move mountains, to shake atmospheres, to build a life that reflects the magnitude of your decision. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about alignment. It's about bringing your actions into harmony with your identity. It's the echo of your clarity. The daily proof that what you said mattered is still the most important thing in your life. Because here's the secret. You won't always feel like showing up. There will be days when your passion feels distant, when your energy feels dull, when the world pulls at you with every possible distraction. And it's in those exact moments that your discipline becomes holy. A sacred contract between who you are and who you're becoming. Discipline is what you do after the hype wears off, after the motivational videos fade, after the world forgets to cheer. It's what you do alone, when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when no one is even asking. Because you are asking, your future self is asking, your legacy is begging. Please don't quit just because it got quiet. You see, success is less about speed and more about stamina. It's not about who moves first. It's about who moves still focused, still steady, still building. The greatest empires were not built on emotion. They were built on execution, day by day, brick by brick, over and over until what was once invisible became undeniable. So you must become the type of person who doesn't just have discipline. You must embody it. You must turn it into your identity. I'm the one who follows through. I'm the one who keeps building. I'm the one who doesn't shrink when it gets hard, I sharpen. Because when your actions align with your clarity, you become magnetic. You move differently. You stop needing accountability partners. You are your accountability. You stop waiting for external validation because the consistency of your behavior becomes your reward. And from this place, this anchored, focused, resilient place, action becomes instinct. You no longer think, should I? You move. You execute without hesitation. You make decisions with weight. You don't negotiate with laziness. You don't flirt with doubt. You don't dance with delay. Your clarity has already decided. Your discipline has already proven. So your action, that's just the natural rhythm of a person living on purpose. And when your life becomes aligned like that, when thought, intention, belief, and behavior all speak the same truth. You become undeniable. You no longer have to convince. You no longer have to explain. You no longer have to prove. Because your results will say everything. But let's be real, action will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you approval. It will cost you the small life you would have lived if you kept waiting. But what it gives you? Power, peace, proof. Because you'll know finally, completely, that you are becoming the person you once only dreamed of being. So don't just act. Act with precision. Act with fire. Act like your name is being written in real time, and history is watching with a pen in hand. Your actions are your legacy in motion. So, act like the future is already yours, and you're just collecting the results along the way. Because after the fire of discipline and the roar of action, there must come something deeper, something quieter, but no less powerful. Gratitude. Not the soft, fluffy kind that shows up in cliché quotes and polished captions. Not the surface level thankfulness for things that are easy to like. No, I'm talking about warrior's gratitude. The kind that knows how to thank the hard things. The kind that says, this pain is making me sharper. The kind that looks at delays, betrayal, rejection, and still whispers thank you. Because when you understand the game of life, when you realize that everything is working for you, not to you, gratitude becomes your edge. It keeps you humble when you're winning. It keeps you steady when you're bleeding. It keeps you grounded when your ego wants to fly, and lifted when your doubt wants to bury you. Gratitude is not weakness. It's alignment with reality. It's seeing the full picture. It's realizing that every tear, every closed door, every detour was chiseling you into someone unstoppable. And here's the paradox. The more grateful you are for what is, the more access you unlock to what can be. Because gratitude doesn't make you settle. It makes you strong. It says, yes, I want more. Yes, I'm building more. But I'm grounded enough to honor what I already have. Gratitude keeps you from chasing in desperation. It allows you to build with depth. And when you combine that kind of soul-rooted gratitude with relentless discipline and bold action, you become a force. A force that's not rigid, not brittle, not breakable, but adaptable. Because the truth is life will change. Circumstances shift. People come and go. What once worked will one day stop working. And if you're married to your method instead of your mission, you'll fall. The ones who thrive are not the ones who control the most. They're the ones who adjust the fastest. They bend, but they don't break. They pivot, but they never panic. They adapt their approach without losing the essence of who they are. Adaptability is a superpower. It's how you stay in the game when others are being benched. It's how you stay relevant when the rules change. It's how you build a life that isn't just successful in one season, but legendary in every season. Because success isn't about holding your breath and hoping things stay the same. It's about breathing deep and choosing to evolve. And when gratitude and adaptability merge, something incredible happens. You become resilient, not in a hashtag way, not in a keep your chin up way, but in a real, earned, in the dirt and in the fire kind of way. You don't just get back up. You rise with insight. You get back up smarter. You return with strategy. You walk through storms, not because you're immune, but because you've built your spirit in the flood. Resilience is the most expensive thing you'll ever own because you can't buy it. You have to bleed for it. You have to suffer, to stretch, to sacrifice for it. And once you have it, you walk with a kind of confidence no one can fake. That's when you stop fearing loss. You stop fearing failure. You stop fearing the future because you know You've been to war and you're still standing. And from that unshakable place, you start learning faster. You see lessons in everything. You listen more. You judge less. You ask better questions. You adapt sooner. Because learning isn't just what you do. It's who you've become. And the faster you learn, the faster you rise. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And now you're not just someone with habits. You're someone with momentum. You're someone who can't be ignored. Not because you shout, but because you show up. You become the storm and the shelter, the fire and the foundation, the example, not the echo. And everything you touch elevates. Because once you've walked through fire and grown roots deep enough to hold your ground, you're no longer just chasing success. You're stepping into identity. Not the identity the world handed you. Not the one stitched together by praise or fear or expectations. But the one you chose. The one you claimed. The one you forged moment by moment in the furnace of intention. This is the final ascent, where habits become identity, where discipline becomes instinct, where actions aren't about doing anymore, but about being. You are no longer trying to become. You are. You're not waking up wondering who you need to be. You're waking up as them. Clarity is no longer a decision, it's your default. Focus is no longer a struggle, it's your operating system. Confidence is no longer something you fake. It's written in your posture, your pace, your presence. You've done the work in silence. You've built the proof brick by brick. You've earned the right to walk into any room and let your energy introduce you. This is where the world begins to ask questions. How are you this consistent? How did you become like this? How do you never waver? And your answer won't be a speech. It will be your life. A living, breathing embodiment of everything you once fought to become. This is legacy not as a theory, not as a wish, but as a lived reality. Because legacy is not what you leave behind. It's what you put into motion while you're still breathing. It's not the statue they build when you're gone. It's the systems, the standards, the spirit you install into everything and everyone you touch. It's how you show up. It's what people feel when you speak. It's how the room shifts when you enter. It's what lingers when you leave. Legacy is when people change because of you without you ever needing to say a word. And here's the brutal truth. You are building that legacy right now with every choice, with every yes and every no, with every conversation, with every silent moment when no one's watching but you know what the right thing is. You are writing the story the world will one day tell in your absence. And when that story is told, let it be one of substance, of strength, of sacred pursuit. Let your name carry weight. Let your life raise standards. Let your memory move generations. Because the goal was never just to succeed. It was to become the kind of human that reminds the world what's possible. To become the kind of presence that wakes people up. To become the kind of leader whose example speaks louder than 10,000 words. This is how the truly great live. They don't need to prove anything. Their results already did. They don't beg for attention. They command respect with how they live, how they build, how they carry themselves through the chaos. So now it's your turn to carry the torch, to step into the fire, to rise with purpose, to move with clarity, to act with ferocity, to serve with heart, to adapt with grace, to endure with power, and to leave something behind that cannot die. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more examples. You are the example now. So live loud, live true, live fully, not someday, not when it's easy, not when it's perfect. Now, because your legacy is listening. And when the world speaks your name long after you've left the room, let it speak of a life that was bold, brilliant, and unforgettable. Live the kind of life that speaks when you're not in the room. 2, master the first hour of your day. Before the world wakes up, before the notifications flood in, before the noise of the outside invades your mind, there is a moment, a sliver of stillness, a sacred opening. And that opening holds power most people will never touch because they're too busy reacting to a life they haven't taken time to design. The first hour of your day is not a time slot. It's not a checkbox. It's not just a morning routine. It is the foundation of everything. How you enter the day is how you shape it. And how you shape your day is how you shape your destiny. If you want to change your life, don't start with your job. Don't start with your bank account. Don't even start with your goals. Start with your mornings. Because the person who owns the first hour owns the day. And the person who owns the day writes their future while the rest of the world hits snooze on theirs. When the alarm goes off, you are not just waking up your body, you are waking up your spirit. That moment is not ordinary. It's the birthplace of momentum, the ground zero of direction, the forge of mindset. And what do most people do with it? They waste it. They reach for distraction. They scroll into someone else's reality. They surrender their sovereignty to whatever chaos lives inside a glass screen. Before they've even stood up, they've already handed their mind over. They've already lost the day. But not you. Not anymore. From this moment on, your mornings become non-negotiable. You don't wake up by accident. You wake up on assignment. You rise not just from sleep, you rise into purpose. You start with intention, not impulse. With design, not distraction. With clarity, not chaos. Because what you do in that first hour will echo through the next 23. Your energy, your decisions, your focus, your fire, they are all lit in that sacred beginning. So what do you put in it? You put silence, because the world will be loud, and you must learn to hear yourself again. You put breath, because before you run, you must remember that you're alive. You put movement, because your body is your vehicle, and the driver must be awake. You put truth, because your mind is not neutral. It must be fed before it feeds you lies. You put vision, because if you don't rehearse the life you want, you'll repeat the life you don't. You don't need a complicated system. You don't need an influencer's checklist. You need presence. You need ownership. You need a fire that says, this hour belongs to me. And because it does, so does the day. So does the week. So does the life I'm building. The first hour is where your identity is solidified. It's where your intentions are no longer dreams, but commands. It's where you don't just set goals. You become the person who achieves them. Because who you are when the world is quiet reveals who you truly are. And who you train yourself to be in that silence determines who shows up when it's loud. This is why you don't compromise your morning. You protect it. If you have to wake up earlier, do it. If you have to go to bed sooner, do it. If you have to walk away from old patterns, from lazy loops, from empty rituals, do it. This hour is not a routine. It's a ritual of rebirth. It's where you decide again and again, I am not living by default. I am living by design. And from that place of alignment, you become dangerous because you're no longer reacting. You're leading. You're no longer asking, who am I supposed to be today? You already know. You've already seen it. You chose it before the sun rose, before anyone else had a chance to write your script. You wrote it yourself. This is the power of the first hour. You prepare before the world even shows up. You train your energy before distractions try to steal it. You anchor into who you are before life tries to pull you away from it. And when life throws you curveballs, because it will, you don't bend, because your roots were set before the wind arrived. You don't crack, because you already remembered your purpose when the world forgot it. You don't lose focus, because you rehearsed victory when everyone else was still asleep in victimhood. You walk into the chaos with calm. You move through the noise with clarity. You handle resistance with resilience because your morning already made you stronger than anything the day could bring. This is how you build momentum before the world catches up. This is how you outpace doubt, how you rise faster, how you keep your edge sharp, how you do in days what others take years to figure out. It's not luck. It's not even motivation. It's preparation. Every single morning. Because when you master your mornings, you don't just gain time, you gain truth. Truth about who you are. Truth about what you're building. Truth about what you're no longer willing to tolerate. And in that truth, something divine begins to stir. You stop just setting goals. You start seeing visions, not fantasies, not wishful dreams, but visions, clear, defined, unstoppable blueprints of who you are becoming and where you are headed. The fog that once clouded your future begins to burn off in the heat of your own clarity. Because when you start each day with direction, you stop allowing your past to dictate your future. You stop dragging old identities into new chapters. You stop waking up reacting to life and start waking up designing it. This is where belief gets built. Not the soft kind of belief that disappears when it rains. Not the cheap kind that only works when people are watching, but unshakable belief. The kind that's trained in repetition. The kind that's forged in discipline. The kind that says, I know who I am because I proved it to myself before the sun ever came up. You don't build that kind of belief through hype. You build it through habit, through showing up especially when you don't feel like it, through the daily defiance of mediocrity, through waking up tired, tempted, distracted, and still choosing to honor your destiny. That's what belief is. It's not what you feel. It's what you do when the feelings are gone. You prove to yourself every morning that you are not the person you used to be. You silence the voice of fear, not by arguing with it, but by outworking it. And when belief is backed by action, you become unstoppable. Because now you're not hoping for a future. You're constructing it. Each morning becomes another brick, another piece of architecture added to the vision you've already seen. And that vision, it's not just a dream anymore. It's a direction. It's your compass in chaos. It's your guiding force when life gets loud. And it becomes so real to you, so detailed, so vivid, that not even failure can blur it. You begin to walk with a different posture, a deeper patience, a sharper instinct, because now your mornings aren't just preparing your schedule. They're preparing your soul. They're shaping how you see, how you think, how you respond. And over time, your life stops becoming something you endure and starts becoming something you steer. Every vision needs a vessel, and you become that vessel, not by chance, but by choice made over and over again each morning before the world even opens its eyes. This is where most people drift and where you decide that your energy is yours, that your mind is yours, that your mission is not a reaction to the past, but a declaration to the future. I will not waste another day living beneath who I am. And the more you live that way, the more you start to recognize everything that doesn't belong. Old habits start to fall off like dead leaves. Toxic patterns reveal themselves. Distractions lose their grip because clarity makes it impossible to fake alignment. And what does that clarity produce? Focus. Not the kind you have to force. The kind that flows from purpose. The kind that wakes you up with fire in your lungs. The kind that silences doubt because you've already decided what matters most. Focus is the byproduct of clarity, sharpened by repetition, strengthened by vision, sustained by identity. When your mornings begin with this kind of intention, you don't lose focus anymore. You filter faster. You say no quicker. You course correct sooner. You don't chase every opportunity. You evaluate them through the lens of your mission. You don't entertain every invitation. You measure them against your becoming. Because now you know the cost of your attention. Now you know what it means to guard your greatness. And that focus, that morning-forged, belief-backed, vision-driven focus, becomes the reason why you move 10 steps ahead while others are still wondering how to start. You no longer hope the day goes well. You command it. You structure it. You move through it with precision because you mastered the morning. And now the day answers to you because once focus sharpens, once belief roots, once vision ignites, something sacred begins to rise within you. Purpose, not a slogan, not a hobby, not a title on a LinkedIn profile, but the deep knowing that you are here to do something that matters. And you're no longer willing to live outside of that alignment. Purpose is not found in a moment of inspiration. It's built in moments of repetition. And nothing reveals purpose faster than a disciplined morning, because the way you treat your first hour is how you treat your calling. You either approach it with reverence or you drift through it like it's disposable. But make no mistake, how you greet the morning is a prophecy. It predicts the level at which you'll play today. It signals to the universe what kind of life you're prepared to carry. And when purpose comes alive, everything else falls into place. Discipline becomes natural. Action becomes effortless. Obstacles lose their sting because purpose gives pain a reason to exist. It gives struggle a framework. It gives fatigue a mission to serve. People will ask, how do you stay so consistent? How do you keep going? How do you not get bored with the basics? And they'll never understand because they're still chasing passion. But you're driven by purpose. Passion is loud. It's exciting. It's seductive, but it's fragile. It fades with friction. Purpose is different. It's quiet. It's deep. It's patient. It's the voice that says, do it again, when no one's watching and no one claps. It's what drags you out of bed when motivation is nowhere to be found. It's what keeps your promises sacred, even when breaking them would be easier. And here's the miracle. The more you live from purpose, the more life responds in kind. Doors open. People appear. Opportunities align. Not because you're lucky, but because you're ready. Because your habits made you worthy. Because your mornings built a foundation too strong for chaos to crack. This is where the standard is born. The invisible line beneath which you will no longer live. The non-negotiable identity of the person you refuse to compromise. And that standard, it becomes your legacy. Long before people remember your name, they will feel your standard in how you lead, in how you show up, in how you treat the minutes most people throw away. You begin to realize you're not just building days. You're building decades. You're not just chasing goals. You're becoming the guardian of your own greatness. And legacy is not built in applause. It's built in alignment. It's not carved by chance. It's constructed by consistency. You don't leave a mark because you tried to. You leave a mark because every morning you became the kind of person who does. You didn't just live, you led. You led your body. You led your mind. You led your habits. And eventually, you led others, not because you told them what to do, but because your life became the evidence. And here's the final truth. When you master the first hour, you begin to live in such a way that even in your absence, your standard remains. People remember how you carried yourself. They rise because you once rose. They build because you once showed them what it looked like. They wake up with fire because your life lit the match. This is what it means to live in legacy, to live in power, to live in purpose. So rise, not for noise, not for followers, not for fame, Rise because you are no longer available for the version of you that used to settle. Rise because your mornings are not just the beginning of the day. They are the declaration of your destiny. Own them, protect them, honor them. And one day, the world will rise to match your standard. Master the first hour of your day, and the world will never again be able to dictate how your story ends. 3. Act before you feel ready. Most people wait. They wait for the perfect time. They wait for clarity, for motivation, for the fear to go away. They wait until they've read enough, healed enough, planned enough, been told they're enough. And in the waiting, they waste their life. Because the truth no one tells you is this: you will never feel ready. Not for the leap, not for the call, not for the risks that stretch your soul past the edges of your comfort. You will never feel fully ready to walk away from what's safe, to choose boldness over predictability, to silence the voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" But that voice isn't truth. It's a test to see if you're going to move with faith or freeze in fear. And most freeze, not because they lack talent, not because they lack potential, but because they've been taught to honor the feeling of fear more than the call to rise. But not you, not anymore. You weren't born to wait for permission. You were born to take command, to move first, to act before you feel worthy, before it makes sense, before the doubt has time to build a case. Action is the great interrupter. It interrupts fear. It interrupts overthinking. It interrupts the spiral of what ifs with the power of I just did. You don't need a full plan to take the first step. You just need to move, because motion creates clarity. Motion creates momentum. Motion turns fear into fuel. And every time you act while afraid, you prove to your own mind that fear doesn't own you. That discomfort isn't a dead end. It's a door. And you don't wait for the door to open. You kick it down. This is how leaders are made. Not in theory, but in execution. Not in certainty, but in courage. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's refusing to let fear make decisions for you. It's the willingness to look foolish, to be judged, to take imperfect action and learn on the move. Growth lives on the other side of go. And the longer you wait to act, the louder the lies in your head become. The longer you stay still, the heavier your potential begins to feel, until eventually you confuse readiness with resistance. But here's the shift. You don't rise when you feel like it. You rise because your future demands it. You rise because who you could be is begging you to move now. You rise even when your knees shake, even when your voice trembles, even when your mind throws every excuse in the book at you. Because action is your rebellion. It's your refusal to stay in the loop. It's your declaration to the universe that, yes, I am scared, but I am here. I am moving. I am becoming. And the moment you move, everything shifts. You start to find your rhythm. You start to see doors that didn't exist before. You start to attract people, resources, ideas because you're in motion now. This is what separates the ones who dream from the ones who do. They don't wait to be perfect. They build while bleeding. They speak before their voice feels strong. They show up when every part of them wants to run. And in doing so, they become. They don't fake confidence. They earn it. They build it through the scars of action. You can read all the books. You can go to all the seminars. You can make all the plans. But if you don't act, nothing changes. And once you act, you don't stop. You act again and again and again. You build the muscle. You create the identity. You become the kind of person who moves, regardless of mood, regardless of fear, regardless of how heavy the world feels that day. You take back your power, one bold action at a time. You start to realize you don't need motivation. You don't need the perfect conditions. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need one thing, a decision. A decision to stop waiting. A decision to stop thinking. A decision to act before you feel ready. Because readiness is not a feeling. It's a result. It's what comes after the action, after the leap, after the fire. So, leap, start, move, launch the thing, speak the truth, send the message, build the dream, write the chapter, take the call, show up for your own damn life. Not because you're ready, but because you're done pretending that fear is a good enough reason to stay the same. Act before you feel ready, and you'll discover that the version of you you've been waiting to become was waiting on you. Because once you take that first action raw, unpolished, uncertain, you break the spell. You stop living like a prisoner to perfection. You stop bowing to hesitation like it's your king. And you start becoming someone entirely different. Someone who trusts the process more than they fear the outcome. And from that one act, a new identity begins to emerge. You're no longer the person who waits. You're no longer the one who explains why now's not the time. You are no longer the person at the edge of the pool wondering if the water's cold. You're in it. You're moving. You're learning through the doing. And that is the power most people never touch. Learning through movement. You don't read your way into transformation. You build your way in. You bleed your way in. You take action. And the action teaches. It humbles you. It sharpens you. It reveals where you are soft so you can become steel. It shows you your real limits so you can break them. Execution is the fastest way to clarity. You'll never know what works until you do it. You'll never know what you're capable of until you stretch beyond the comfort zone and step into the tension of the unknown. And with each move, your belief deepens, not because someone hyped you up, but because you earned it. You earn belief every time you do something you once thought you couldn't. Every time you keep going when the old you would have stopped. Every time you show up when it's messy, when it's uncertain, when it's silent and thankless and hard. But you show up anyway. You become the kind of person whose belief is rooted in evidence. Your own evidence. Not hope. Not theory. But proof. And when belief becomes evidence-based, you don't need to scream. You don't need to convince. Your presence does the talking. Your consistency is the sermon. Your execution is the message. People will start to ask how. How did you change so fast? How did you grow so strong? How did you become that version of you? And you'll answer, I stopped waiting. I stopped thinking. I stopped planning in circles. I acted before I felt ready. And every move forward turned my doubt into data and my fear into fuel. And now, momentum has joined the conversation. Now you're not pushing the boulder uphill. The hill has become a runway. Each act compounds. Each step fuels the next. You're moving with rhythm, with flow, with force. This is where the unstoppable are made. Not in the first act, but in the decision to act again and again and again. To show up without applause. To move without clarity. To obey the mission even when the motivation is missing. Because that's when execution becomes identity. You're no longer someone who wants to be disciplined. You are disciplined. You're no longer working on becoming confident. You're building confidence through action. This isn't hype. It's who you are now. Not because the fear is gone, but because you stopped making fear the deciding vote. And that's the difference. The powerful don't wait for the fear to leave. They move anyway. They don't run from it. They run through it. They know the secret. It's not about being fearless. It's about being obedient to purpose. And when purpose speaks, you don't delay. You don't debate. You don't distract. You execute. You train your body to move before your brain has a chance to negotiate. You rewire yourself to trust action more than analysis. You no longer need to feel ready because now, readiness follows action, not the other way around. So every time you hesitate, every time the voice of fear creeps in and says, wait until you're ready, you respond with action, not argument, not excuses. Action, because the you on the other side of that move, the stronger you, the freer you, the leader, the finisher, the one who no longer watches others win while they shrink in doubt. They're waiting for you to take the next step. So go, before you feel certain, before you feel skilled, before you feel confident, before anyone else believes it, because belief will catch up, because skill will catch up, because confidence will be built not by waiting, but by moving. Act before you feel ready, and you'll wake up one day realizing you're already everything you were waiting to become. Because once you've acted again and again and again, once your decisions are no longer driven by how you feel, but by who you are, you don't just build results. You build momentum. And momentum changes everything. Momentum is invisible power. It's the quiet force behind every overnight success. It's what turns tiny steps into giant shifts. It's what separates the ones who dabble from the ones who dominate. Momentum is earned, not with one big move, but with small, consistent obedience to the mission. It's not just about doing more. It's about stopping less. Momentum says, I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if no one's watching. You still move. And that kind of movement becomes automatic. You start to crave the work. You start to need the challenge. You stop negotiating with resistance because you know the only answer is forward. Momentum builds something even more rare, and flow, not the kind of flow you stumble into by accident, not the kind of energy that comes once in a while when everything aligns. I'm talking about sustained, intentional, repeatable flow, the kind that comes when your values, your vision, and your daily execution are all locked into the same frequency. You're not chasing anymore. You're not pushing. You're pulled by your standard, by your future, by your clarity. You wake up with a rhythm. You breathe with purpose. You move like someone who already knows where they're going. That's when it stops being effort and becomes identity. You're no longer trying to do the work. You are the work. It's not discipline that pulls you now. It's devotion. Devotion to your calling. Devotion to the person you're becoming. Devotion to the future that refuses to let you go. Because here's the truth. Once you taste momentum, once you see what happens when you act before you're ready, when you trust movement more than motivation, you will never go back to waiting. You'll stop giving your power to moods. You'll stop being seduced by excuses. You'll stop craving validation because your consistency is your confidence. Your repetition is your reputation. Your identity is no longer built on potential. It's built on evidence. And when you move with that kind of evidence, you become undeniable. Not because you're louder, not because you're flashier, but because your results refuse to be ignored. You walk in rooms with silence, but your presence speaks volumes. You move through days with clarity, but your work echoes louder than speeches. You become the kind of person people study, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you embody the standard they didn't know existed. This is the transcendent power of sustained execution. You don't just build success. You build certainty. You build proof. You build a life where your every move reinforces the story you've decided to tell. No more waiting. No more hoping. No more feeling your way into action. From here on out, you act. You trust the movement. You follow the rhythm. You stay in the fire long enough to become unrecognizable to the version of you that once sat on the sidelines of your own life. And if ever doubt returns, because it will, you meet it the same way, with action. Because the only antidote to fear is forward. Because when you've moved long enough, when your days are carved by purpose and your nights rest on earned exhaustion, you cross a threshold. You step into something beyond momentum, beyond discipline, beyond execution. You enter the realm of self-mastery. This is where the fire no longer burns you. It forges you. This is where delay no longer deters you. It sharpens you. Where pain is no longer punishment. It's proof that you are alive, aligned, and advancing. Self-mastery is not about control. It's about ownership. You own your thoughts. You own your reactions. You own your choices, your energy, your habits. You own the fact that nothing outside of you will ever define the power inside of you again. And in that place, you become a presence, not a person others follow because of charisma, but because of consistency, not because you command attention, but because you embody authority. You're not speaking louder. You're speaking less, but your life is thunder. This is the edge few ever reach. The summit where vision becomes vibration, where you no longer chase outcomes. You attract them because you've become magnetic to results. You've raised your frequency so high that only alignment can exist in your orbit. And what do you do with that power? You build legacy, not the kind that sits on plaques or websites, the kind that lives in other people, the kind that's felt in the silence after you leave a room, the kind that moves generations because you chose not to wait. You chose to act before you felt ready. You chose to build before the world approved. You chose to speak before your voice was perfect. You chose to rise when doubt screamed louder than faith. And now your life is a blueprint. Now your name is a reference point. Now your existence whispers to those watching in secret. If they can move, so can I. If they can build, so can I. If they can break the loop, so can I. That is impact. That is immortality. Not to be remembered, but to be repeated. Not to be praised, but to be multiplied. Because you didn't wait. You acted. And every act before readiness became a message. A message that fear is a liar. That comfort is a cage. That clarity lives inside of movement. That your legacy is written in decisions, not delays. So live that way. Every day. From the first moment your feet hit the floor until the last light leaves your eyes. Live like every breath is a vote. Every step is a sermon. Every choice is a ripple that will echo long after you're gone. Live like your name is becoming something eternal, because it is. Act before you feel ready, and watch the world reshape itself around the new version of you. The end. No more waiting. Now is the only time you need. Move. 4. Execute one high-value task relentlessly. We live in a world addicted to doing more. More tasks, more hustle, more boxes checked, more chaos mistaken for progress. But here's the truth that few will tell you. Success doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what matters, relentlessly. The average life is buried in the urgent. The extraordinary life is built on the essential. And if you want to separate yourself from 99% of people, you must become the kind of person who doesn't just work hard. You must become the kind who works with precision, not scattered, not reactive, not overwhelmed by a to-do list filled with distraction dressed as productivity. You don't need more tasks. You need one target, one high-value task executed with obsession, with rhythm, with discipline so sharp it becomes your second skin. Because every day there's a difference between movement and momentum, between effort and elevation, between being busy and building something that actually matters. You don't rise by doing everything. You rise by mastering one thing at a time and attacking it like your destiny depends on it. Because it does. Every single day, there is a task that matters more than the rest. A task that pushes your vision forward, that stretches your income, strengthens your body, sharpens your edge. A task that, if done daily, would make your future undeniable. And yet, most people avoid it. They fill their day with filler, emails, notifications, reorganizing a desk instead of reorganizing their life, cleaning up the small things while their calling collects dust. But not you. Not if you want to rise. Not if you're serious about freedom. Not if you're committed to results so loud they echo beyond your lifetime. So, here's the call. Identify your highest value task and build your life around it. Not your week. Not your schedule. Your life. The one thing that moves the needle. The one thing that creates leverage. The one thing that if you mastered it, if you gave it your morning, your energy, your edge, it would change everything. It could be writing. It could be selling. It could be leading. It could be learning. It could be creating, presenting, training, serving. But there is something, one skill, one task, one behavior that multiplies your momentum. Find it, then execute it relentlessly. Not when you feel like it. Not when it's convenient. Not when the timing is perfect or the mood is right. Every single day. Before distractions. Before noise. Before the world gets its hands on your attention. You get your hands on your calling. Because the world will try to pull you into the shallow, into the many, into the mindless. But you were not built to drown in the many. You were built to master the few, the vital, the valuable, the visible, the work that builds legacy, not just a paycheck. And when you choose this path, you will look different. You will move different. You will no longer be able to relate to people who mistake busyness for purpose. You'll no longer fit in with the crowd that celebrates chaos like it's a badge of honor. Because your honor won't be in how many things you juggle. It'll be in how deeply you commit, how obsessively you protect the sacred space around your highest work. And when others scatter their energy across 20 shallow tasks, you will dive 10 feet deep into the one that builds empires. You will develop depth, focus, power, and eventually dominance. Because mastery isn't built in multitasking. It's built in the mundane repetition of excellence. The same move, the same craft, the same edge over and over until you are no longer participating. You are commanding. And when that happens, results don't just show up. They compound. Because consistency is the currency of high performers. It's not what you do once that changes your life. It's what you do without fail, without excuse, without question. It's the same swing, the same message, the same routine until your identity fuses with your excellence. You stop being someone who does the task and become someone who is the task. You no longer try to be disciplined. You are disciplined. You no longer try to focus. You are focused. Because repetition doesn't just change your results. It changes you. And suddenly, the results are inevitable. Because the process became sacred. Because the practice became your identity. Because you didn't chase outcomes. You mastered the input. And day by day, silently, consistently, you outpaced the world. Not because you did more, but because you did what matters more relentlessly than anyone else. So simplify, strip the distractions, cancel the noise, declutter the chaos, find your one thing and execute it so consistently, so precisely, so violently aligned with your future that the world has no choice but to take notice. Not because you shouted, not because you begged, but because your results became too real to ignore. This is how greatness is built. One high-value task, relentlessly. Because once you've committed to that single high-value task, and committed, like your life depends on it, you start to realize something almost mystical. You're no longer managing time, you're commanding it. You stop asking, how do I fit everything in? And you start declaring, if it doesn't serve the mission, it doesn't make the list. You become ruthless. Not reckless ruthless. Ruthless with distraction. Ruthless with the mediocre. Ruthless with the parts of your schedule that pretend to be urgent, but steal your destiny, one harmless minute at a time. Because time isn't lost in hours. It's lost in moments. Micro decisions where you traded your power for comfort, where you let someone else's priority override your purpose, where you broke your own rhythm because the world offered something easier. But that version of you, gone, buried in the graveyard of good intentions. You've chosen execution. You've chosen depth. And now your time flows through systems, not emotions. You don't just show up when it feels right. You build rituals that pull you into excellence even when your energy resists. Your systems are stronger than your moods. Your rhythm is stronger than your resistance. Because you built it that way. Because you chose to create structure that supports your greatness. Not reactiveness that protects your smallness. And in that structure, something rare is born. Sustainability. You're not burning out. You're not sprinting and crashing. You've found flow. You've engineered momentum into your routine. And now, your life doesn't just run, it builds. It compounds. It lifts. It creates margin, not just for performance, but for peace. Because when you commit to one high-value task relentlessly, you don't just create results. You create space. Space for creativity. Space for energy. Space for the deeper work that only shows up when your plate isn't full of crumbs. You begin to rise above the noise, and you realize this was never about doing more. It was about becoming more precise, more aligned, more available for your own potential. You stop chasing goals that don't fit you. You stop following blueprints built for someone else's dream. Because now you understand your execution carves your path. And here's the final shift. You stop performing. You start owning. This is not about proving anymore. It's about possessing. You don't ask for permission. You don't wait for praise. You own your lane. You own your craft. You own your pace, your standard, your path. You become a force. And when that happens, people will notice, but not because you ask them to. Because your consistency will speak when your words are quiet. Because your results will walk into rooms before you do. You won't need to convince anyone anymore. You'll just live in such a way that they feel it. Because there's something undeniable about a person who has simplified their life around the one thing that matters and executes it like legacy depends on it. And yours does. So execute it again. Today, tomorrow, next week, when it's boring, when it's hard, when it's lonely, when no one's clapping, when no one gets it. Especially then, because repetition isn't killing your creativity. It's activating your mastery. This is how you become world-class. This is how you build something that lasts. This is how you become unforgettable. Not with more, with meaning, with focus, with intention, with fire that never goes out because you feed it daily with aligned action. So go back to the task. Sharpen it. Honor it. Defend it. Make it your altar. Make it your anthem. Make it your legacy. Execute one high-value task relentlessly, and you won't just rise above the crowd. You'll never have to compete again, because you'll be in a league of your own, quiet, focused, undeniable. Because once you've tasted the power of living with this kind of alignment, this unshakable focus, this holy repetition, you'll never again tolerate the shallow life. You'll never again be satisfied by scattered efforts and polite progress, because you've seen what it feels like to move with conviction. Not hype, not performance, but conviction, the kind that lives in your spine, that radiates through your voice, that walks into every room and makes people feel something they can't explain. You're not dabbling anymore. You're devoted. You've chosen your path. You've chosen your rhythm. You've chosen to make your life a testament to what happens when a person locks in and refuses to let go. And when you live with that kind of conviction, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop calling yourself a beginner. You stop labeling yourself as trying. You stop apologizing for taking up space. Because now you understand. You weren't made to compete. You were made to carry something, to deliver something, to build something so weighty, so undeniable, that the world shifts every time you show up with it. That's identity. Not the one you inherited. Not the one shaped by doubt, by fear, by failure. The one you chose. The one you forged. The one built. Day after day, by showing up for the task, even when it wasn't glamorous, even when it wasn't loud, even when it wasn't rewarded. Because that's where power is built. Not in the moment of the outcome, but in the devotion to the process, in the quiet excellence, in the unsexy loyalty to the work no one sees. And what the world calls obsession, you call alignment. What they call overdoing it, you call ownership. What they call too intense, you call the only way to live. Because when your work is an extension of your identity, when your craft is your calling, you can't treat it casually. You honor it. You protect it. You prioritize it like your soul is on the line, because it is. And then something spiritual begins to happen. This isn't just about business anymore. It's not about routines or hacks or metrics. It's about presence. It's about impact. It's about becoming the kind of person whose life becomes a lighthouse in a world drowning in distraction. Because people are watching. They may not tell you. They may not clap. But they feel you. Your consistency becomes their conviction. Your devotion becomes their invitation. Your standard becomes their permission. You are not just building success. You are building legacy. You are building frequency. You are becoming a walking example of what's possible when someone stops dancing around their potential and starts owning it like it's sacred. This is how revolutions begin. Not with noise, but with someone, somewhere, who decided to do one thing better than anyone else, to master it, to marry it, to mold their very existence around it. And in that, they become a force, a voice, a movement. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't look for the next trick. Don't get lost in the many. Don't scroll your power away. Return to your edge. Return to your task. Return to the one thing that makes you dangerous. And do it again. Because while the world tries to find their purpose in complexity, you will find yours in clarity, in simplicity, in the sacred discipline of showing up for the task that builds your legacy. One task, one target, executed with focus so sharp, it carves your name into time itself. This is how greatness is lived. This is how power is built. This is how legends are born. Execute one high-value task relentlessly, and you'll never have to wonder who you are again. You'll know, and so will everyone else. 5, speak to yourself like you're becoming a legend. Before the world ever hears your voice, your soul hears every word you whisper to yourself. And that voice That unseen, unspoken dialogue running beneath your breath is the architect of your life. You don't build a legend from praise. You build it from belief. And belief doesn't begin with the world telling you you're enough. It begins when you do. If you want to rise, if you want to lead, if you want to break generational limits and carry a name that echoes through time, you must learn to speak to yourself with fire, with truth, with authority. Because there is no amount of external motivation that can rescue a person enslaved by their own voice. If your internal dialogue is poisoned, your potential will rot in silence. If your words betray you, you'll never walk into the room like you own it, even if you've earned the right. So here's the shift. You must stop talking to yourself like you're surviving and start speaking like you're becoming a legend. Not someday, not when you get there. Now, right now, before the income, before the breakthrough, before the applause, before the platform. Because how you speak to yourself now is the soil that determines whether your future will grow or die in excuses. You think your thoughts don't matter? You think that self-doubt is just background noise? That voice you ignore, the one calling you too late, too small, too behind, too broken. That voice is not harmless. It is an assassin, and it kills dreams long before life ever gets the chance. So what's the antidote? Speak back, louder, clearer, more relentlessly than the voice of fear has ever dared to speak to you. Don't wait to feel confident. Speak like you are. Don't wait for results to affirm you. Affirm yourself in the darkness. Declare who you are before the evidence arrives. Because the world responds not to doubt, but to certainty. Speak to yourself like someone who's already made the decision. I will not be average. I will not fold when it gets hard. I will not inherit the limitations of people who never saw my fire. Speak with clarity. Speak with conviction. Speak with a cadence that reminds every cell in your body that you're not here to participate. You're here to dominate. Tell yourself the truth, even when your emotions beg you to lie. I'm not tired, I'm rising. I'm not stuck, I'm sharpening. I'm not behind, I'm being prepared. I'm not alone, I'm being set apart. I'm not failing, I'm forming. Because the mind will believe whatever it hears most often. Feed it weakness, it will act weak. Feed it power, and it will start to bend the world to match the identity you built. And yes, it will feel fake at first. It will feel like you're lying to yourself. But the truth is this, you're not lying. You're leading. You're leading your nervous system. You're leading your emotions. You're leading your beliefs into alignment with the future you already chose. Because becoming a legend is not about being perfect. It's about being relentless in the way you carry yourself. Internally first, then outwardly. You become a legend long before the world knows your name. You become a legend when you wake up and speak into your life, like your destiny is listening. Because it is. You start to understand you're not just speaking to yourself. You're speaking to your future self. And they are waiting to be summoned, waiting to be built by the words you declare in private, waiting for you to stop narrating a story that was never yours to begin with. You stop saying things like, I always quit. I'm not good with people. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just not disciplined. I can't focus. I'm not built for this. You stop cursing your own progress. You stop rehearsing the identity that's keeping you small. You stop giving oxygen to beliefs that want to bury you in comfort. Instead, you wake up and say, I keep promises to myself. I rise under pressure. I move with clarity. I speak with precision. I train like I've already arrived. I work like the future depends on this moment because it does. This is not fluff. This is warfare. Mental warfare. Spiritual warfare. The battle between your current self and your legendary self. And only one can win. So every word counts. Every phrase you repeat is a seed, and the harvest is coming, whether you like what you planted or not. So speak to yourself like it's sacred, like your soul is listening, like your future is recording every syllable and preparing to build it into your reality. Because it is. You think this is just self-talk? No, this is strategy. This is you deciding that every inch of your being will be trained, focused, and aligned toward the highest version of yourself. You don't just talk anymore. You train yourself with truth. And that truth becomes a weapon, a compass, a shield, a fire. Because once your words shift, your walk shifts. You start showing up different. You move with intention. You make decisions faster. You stop explaining yourself because now your life is speaking louder than your doubts ever did. The voice inside you has changed. It's not begging anymore. It's building, not hoping, honoring, not stalling, starting. And from that inner conversation, action is born. Because true self-talk isn't a mental massage. It's a call to movement. It's you throwing down the gauntlet to every part of you that still wants to stay small, safe, and silent. Every time you speak truth into yourself, you are issuing a command. And when you do that long enough, you begin to obey your own voice. You begin to trust that what you say will happen because you made it so. That's when your words turn into execution. The task gets done. The habits get built. The routines harden into rituals. Not out of pressure, but because your identity is now married to your behavior. You are no longer just someone with good intentions. You are someone with flawless follow-through. You speak, and then you move. You move, even when it's inconvenient. You move when it's cold, when it's quiet, when it's uncertain, when the old you would have curled back under the covers, but not anymore, because now you've declared out loud who you are. And once that declaration is made, you do not break it. Because every time you keep your word to yourself, you etch a new identity into your brain. Every repetition of action carved from truth writes a new code, one that says, this is who I am now. You stop chasing discipline. You become it. You stop searching for confidence. You walk in it. You stop hoping for belief. You generate it from your own behavior. This is how identity is built. Not from dreaming, but from daily, deliberate alignment between what you say and what you do. And when your identity solidifies, something permanent happens. You become undeniable. You don't need to tell people you're focused. They see it. You don't need to announce your goals. They feel the fire in your actions. And that's when the world starts to respond. Not with magic, not with luck, but with recognition. Because energy doesn't lie. When someone walks in truth, when their identity is forged in action and sealed in self-respect, you feel it. That presence, it doesn't come from talent. It comes from inner congruence, from waking up every day and speaking into yourself what you're committed to becoming, and then backing it up with blood, sweat, and consistency. That's what creates legacy. Not just results, but resonance. You resonate because you've become. You echo because your life is now a frequency, a vibration that cannot be silenced by opinion, rejection, or delay. You move differently because your foundation is no longer built on how the world sees you, but on how you see yourself. And how you see yourself, it's not an accident. It's a product of the conversations you've been having in the quiet, the declarations you've whispered into the dark, the moments you decided to speak to yourself not like a victim, but like a visionary. You are not soft. You are not stuck. You are not average, unless you choose to narrate that story again. So change the script. Sharpen the language. Speak with a voice that matches the weight of your calling. You are building a legend, and legends are not built in silence. They are spoken into existence. Because once your voice rises, once your words have become forged in commitment, once you've learned to speak to yourself like you're becoming someone eternal, you start to realize you're not just building this for you. You're building it for every person who will one day hear your name. You see, the way you speak to yourself in this season will echo far beyond this moment. It will ripple through your decisions, your presence, your family, your legacy. You are not just changing your life. You are breaking cycles. You are stopping the patterns of doubt that have been passed down like inheritance. You are cutting off the bloodline of insecurity and smallness. You are standing in the mirror and declaring with authority, it ends with me, and it begins again, stronger than it's ever been. This is the work that changes everything, because the voice you give yourself now becomes the voice your children inherit. The standard you speak into yourself becomes the blueprint for everyone who watches you in silence, wondering if they're allowed to believe too. You don't need a stage to be heard. You don't need a platform to preach. The way you show up to your own life will become a sermon louder than any microphone could carry. And in that sermon, in that rhythm of self-respect, self-command, self-declaration, you begin to redefine reality. You shift what's possible. You rewrite the narrative. You live so fully, so presently, so unapologetically in your power that your existence becomes a permission slip. Not because you asked to be a role model, but because you became an example. And examples, they live forever. Because one day, someone will ask, how did you do it? How did you go from where you were to who you became? And you'll smile, not because it was easy, but because it was true. And you'll say, I changed the conversation. I stopped speaking death over my dreams. I stopped calling myself names I would never say to someone I love. I stopped tolerating a voice in my head that didn't sound like destiny. And I started talking to myself like I mattered, like I was on assignment, like I was called to build something sacred with this one, wildlife. Because the truth is, you are. You were not given this life to play small. You were not placed here to shrink into the shadows of your own brilliance. You were not gifted this breath to speak doubt into your own lungs. You are here to build, to lead, to elevate, to ignite. And the fuel for that fire is the way you talk to yourself when no one's watching. That's the voice that sets your world ablaze. That's the voice that builds empires from ashes. That's the voice that will never leave you, as long as you keep it honest, aligned, and holy. So speak. Speak to yourself like you're already walking in your purpose. Speak to yourself like every cell in your body is listening. Speak to yourself like heaven assigned you something no one else can carry. And your job is to rise into it, fully awake, fully aware, fully committed. Speak to yourself like you're becoming a legend. Because if you keep speaking like that, you will. And the world will rise to match the sound. 6, build an environment that forces growth. Before you chase another goal, before you write another plan, before you set another intention, ask yourself this: what kind of environment are you standing in? Because no matter how powerful your mindset, no matter how clear your vision, if you plant yourself in soil that suffocates your potential, you will never rise. You can't out-discipline a toxic environment. You can't out-hustle a room that drains your energy. You can't outgrow a space that was never designed to hold your greatness. So if you want to grow, it's truly grow, you must build an environment that forces it. Not suggests, not encourages, forces. An environment that demands your evolution. That stretches you beyond comfort. That makes staying the same more painful than becoming more. Because growth doesn't happen in neutral. It happens in pressure, in tension, in spaces that challenge your identity, and call your future forward. You must become the architect of that space. You must curate every element, your surroundings, your relationships, your routines, so that they conspire for your transformation. This is not about aesthetics. This is about alignment, mindset. Start with your mind. What thoughts are you allowing to take root? What beliefs are you watering daily? If your internal environment is filled with doubt, fear, and limitation, then no external change will matter. You must cultivate a mindset that thrives on challenge, that sees obstacles as opportunities, that believes growth is not just possible, but inevitable. Belief. Belief is the foundation. Without it, the structure collapses. You must believe in your capacity to change, to adapt, to overcome. This belief will fuel your actions, sustain your discipline, and anchor you when the storms come. Clarity. Clarity is your compass. Without it, you wander aimlessly. Define your goals. Understand your why. Know what you're building and why it matters. This clarity will guide your decisions, filter your distractions, and keep you focused on what truly matters. Vision. Vision is the blueprint. It's the picture of your desired future. Hold it vividly in your mind. Let it inspire you, motivate you, and pull you forward. Your vision should be so compelling that it becomes a magnet drawing you toward your destiny. Purpose. Purpose gives meaning to your journey. It's the reason behind your efforts. When challenges arise, your purpose will remind you why you started. It will fuel your perseverance, ignite your passion, and keep you moving forward. Discipline. Discipline is the bridge between goals and achievement. It's the daily commitment to your vision. Establish routines that support your growth. Create habits that align with your goals. Discipline turns intentions into reality. Action. Action is the catalyst for change. Without it, all else is theory. Take consistent, deliberate steps toward your goals. Embrace imperfection. Learn from failure. Progress is built through action. Gratitude. Gratitude shifts your perspective. It allows you to see challenges as opportunities, failures as lessons, and setbacks as setups for comebacks. Cultivate gratitude daily. It will keep you grounded, resilient, and focused on the positive. Adaptability. Adaptability is your superpower. In a world of constant change, your ability to adjust will determine your success. Embrace flexibility. Be open to new ideas. Learn from feedback. Adaptability ensures you stay relevant and resilient. Resilience. Resilience is your armor. It protects you from the inevitable hardships of growth. Develop mental toughness. Bounce back from setbacks. Use adversity as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Learning. Learning is the fuel for growth. Commit to lifelong learning. Seek knowledge. Embrace curiosity. Learning expands your perspective, enhances your skills, and propels you forward. Conclusion. Building an environment that forces growth is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process of intentional design. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, spaces that inspire you, and routines that align with your goals. Remember, you are the architect of your environment. Design it with purpose. Fill it with elements that demand your evolution. And watch as you rise to meet the highest version of yourself. Because in the right environment, growth is not just possible, it's inevitable. Because the moment you take full ownership of your environment, internal and external, you become dangerous. Not in a reckless way, in a focused, unshakable, mission-driven way. You stop drifting. You stop reacting. You stop watering weeds and wondering why nothing great grows. You know, Because now you've built a space where average can't survive, where excuses feel awkward, where laziness feels like betrayal, not just to your goals, but to the version of you who knows better. The air is different here. Every object, every voice, every routine in your life starts carrying weight because it's either helping you evolve or it's getting in the way. You begin to filter everything. You no longer ask, is this good or bad? You ask, does this grow me? And if it doesn't stay. That's how seriously you must take your environment, because the cost of staying in a space that shrinks you is your future. And that's too expensive to negotiate. Look around your life. Does your room inspire you? Does your circle challenge you? Do your habits stretch you? Does your routine demand greatness or coddle your insecurities? The most powerful people on the planet, they don't just find great environments. They build them deliberately, aggressively, unapologetically. They create spaces that act like mirrors, reflecting back who they could become. And they visit those spaces daily. So should you. Turn your environment into a trigger for transformation. Let your space speak your standards. Let it hold you accountable when your discipline slips. Let it remind you loudly, visually, spiritually, that you are not here to repeat cycles. You are here to evolve out of them. That's what the right environment does. It makes staying small painful. It makes mediocrity uncomfortable. It doesn't let you hide from your potential. It forces you to face it. That's how growth becomes inevitable. Because you've removed every place to run. You've removed every crutch. You've engineered your life so that who you are becoming is no longer optional. It's the only path left. And once that becomes true, you move faster. You build deeper. You stop entertaining distractions because your environment doesn't allow them to stay long. People ask, how are you so consistent? How do you keep the fire alive? The answer is simple. You built a world that keeps the fire burning. Your space now matches your standard. And in that alignment, you unlock something most people will never know. The freedom that comes from living on purpose. This is no longer just about motivation. It's about mastery, about rising into the highest possible version of yourself because you set the entire world around you to support it. Not one element left to chance, not one habit left undisciplined, not one relationship left unexamined. Everything is built to pull greatness out of you, daily, without fail. That is how you make growth. Not a hope, not a wish, but your baseline. You build the environment, and the environment builds you. Because once you build an environment that breathes excellence, not occasionally, but every moment of every day, you're no longer just growing. You're becoming. You're not reaching anymore. You're rising into who you were always meant to be. This is where growth stops being a goal and becomes your identity. You are no longer the person who needs motivation. You are the one who creates it. No longer chasing inspiration. You embody it. You wake up, and the environment you've built is not just a support system. It's a mirror of your future self. It reflects back everything you said you wanted and challenges you to prove it today. Because your environment is not passive. It is an engine, and you've wired it to push you forward, to strip away delay, to silence doubt, to sharpen discipline. You no longer beg for transformation. You build it. And when the storms come, because they will, you don't get shaken. You rise with reinforced roots because your habits are anchored. Your vision is clear. Your surroundings are designed for resilience. You've made the hard things easy by removing the things that made you soft. You've made discomfort your teacher, growth your default, and legacy your compass. And that legacy, it starts to spread. You no longer keep your evolution to yourself. Your presence speaks so loud. Others rise just by being near you, not because you told them to, but because your life became a permission slip, a signal, a frequency that says, this is what it looks like when someone stops settling. This is what it feels like to be fully activated. This is what happens when a person builds a world so powerful, so aligned, so demanding that anything less than expansion dies at the door. This is your responsibility now, to keep building, to keep refining, to never again live in an environment that treats your greatness like a side project. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your future. You owe it to the silent watchers, the ones studying your every move, hoping you'll show them how to break free. So keep going, keep curating, keep shaping your world, like your legacy depends on it, because it does. One space, one habit, one conversation at a time. You are building the conditions for your own explosion. And when that explosion happens, when the results start to stack, when the transformation becomes visible, when your name starts carrying weight, you'll know it wasn't luck. It wasn't talent. It was the design, the intentional, ruthless, daily design of an environment that forced your evolution, and you will never go back. Not because you can't, but because you won't. You've seen what it's like to live in alignment. You've felt what it means to walk in rhythm with your purpose. You've become a builder of destiny, and no one can take that from you. So live it, honor it, own it, and above all else, protect it. Because the environment you've built isn't just your home now, it's your launch pad. The place where greatness is not just possible, it's inevitable. Build an environment that forces growth, and watch the world rise to match your standard. 7, track your progress relentlessly. The reason most people never reach their potential isn't because they lack ambition. It's because they lack awareness. You can't improve what you don't track. You can't elevate what you don't measure. You can't refine what you refuse to confront. And every single day that passes without documentation, without clarity on where you stand, is a day where your greatness drifts further into fiction. Because goals are not reached by accident. They're achieved through alignment, the brutal, beautiful discipline of measuring your direction. To track your progress relentlessly is to tell the truth before the world does. It's to shine a light on the details, the actions, the patterns, the numbers, the habits, and to say without shame, this is where I am. This is what's real. Now, let's build. Tracking is not about guilt. It's not about judgment. It's about ownership. It's about refusing to live in the dark. Because when you don't track, you don't just forget. You lie to yourself. You inflate the good. You excuse the bad. You guess at your progress and hope your mind forgets the days you didn't show up. But the truth is, your future doesn't forget. And the only way to make sure you're becoming the person you say you want to be is to hold a mirror up every single day and look at the numbers. You wake up and ask, did I win yesterday? Did I move forward? Did I do what I said I would? Not in theory, not in emotion, in evidence. Because progress is not a feeling, it's a fact. And facts don't lie. You can feel like you're growing, but your tracker says you've been idle for 7 days. You can feel like you're trying, but the scorecard says you've done nothing measurable. And that sting, that truth, that's what makes you dangerous. Because once you get honest, you get clear. And once you get clear, you get powerful. The person who tracks is the person who controls. They know what's working. They know what's not. They make better decisions. They course correct faster. They move with precision instead of guessing through the fog. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on metrics. because success doesn't respond to feelings. It responds to data. How many reps did you do? How many calories did you eat? How many hours did you focus? How much did you earn? How many leads did you reach out to? How many promises did you keep? This is not obsession. It's excellence. And excellence is not accidental. It's engineered through awareness. If you want to become elite, you must track like the elite. You must build a dashboard for your destiny, one that shows you in real time where your energy is going, where your results are showing, and where your excuses are still hiding. And when you do that, when you see it all laid out, black and white, progress and plateau, you gain the most powerful tool in the world, leverage, because now you don't need to wonder what to change. You know. Now, you don't fear failure. You study it. Now, you don't resist improvement. You design it. This is how professionals move. This is how winners sharpen. This is how legacies are carved. They don't just hope it's working. They prove it. They don't ask for feedback. They own the facts. Because relentless tracking creates ruthless clarity. And ruthless clarity kills confusion. And when confusion dies, commitment thrives. Because when you track your progress relentlessly, you don't just transform your strategy, you transform your mindset. You go from, I think I'm doing okay, to I know where I stand. You go from vague hope to precise power. You stop telling yourself stories. You start speaking in numbers. You start thinking like a builder, like a surgeon, like a high-performance machine that was built to execute, not to guess. And that shift, that mental shift, it changes everything because tracking removes emotion from the equation. It silences the part of your mind that wants to negotiate, to justify, to pretend. Instead of saying, I worked hard, you look at the calendar and say, I showed up for 6 out of 7 days. Instead of saying, I feel like I'm improving, you say, I lifted 30 more pounds than I did last month. Instead of saying, I hope I'm on track, you say, here's my target, here's my trend, here's the gap, and here's how I'll close it. That's what tracking gives you: clarity, control, and confidence. Because confidence doesn't come from compliments. It comes from consistency, backed by data. And when you see that line moving, when the graph starts trending up, when the checkboxes are getting filled, when the progress is visible, you stop questioning yourself. You stop wondering if you're good enough. Because the proof is in the pattern. You're becoming undeniable, one metric at a time. And here's what no one talks about. Tracking is not restrictive. It's liberating. It frees you from guilt. Because when you track, you know you're putting in the work. It frees you from perfectionism. Because you can see the trend is more important than any one-off day. It frees you from overthinking. Because you don't need to guess anymore. You just need to look at the data and respond. And that response, it creates momentum. Because the more you track, the more aware you become. The more aware you become, the faster you improve. The faster you improve, the more you want to track. Because now the scoreboard isn't scary. It's exciting. You want to see the progress. You want to chase the next level. You want to beat your own best because you're in the game now, not just watching from the sidelines of your intentions. And when that happens, when your habits start stacking, when your progress becomes predictable, when your identity starts to shift from someone who tries to someone who executes, you build something far more powerful than results. You build self-respect, not the kind that needs affirmation, not the kind that waits for applause, the kind that says, I know who I am because I've seen what I do when no one's watching. That is priceless because self-respect is the foundation of every great life. And it's built in the trenches, in the reps you track, in the numbers you honor, In the structure you stay loyal to when everything else tells you to quit. This is how giants are made. Not in bursts, in measured movement, not in hype, in habit. So stop making your progress invisible. Stop giving your mind permission to pretend. Stop living in the fog when you could be living in the fire. Track your progress relentlessly, and you won't just improve. You'll ascend. You'll rise in real time, with real data, in real control of your destiny. Because when the scoreboard is in your hands, so is your future. Because once you track daily, not occasionally, not emotionally, but daily, you don't just gain information, you gain vision. You begin to see patterns where others see randomness. You notice the behaviors that precede your best days. You catch the triggers that derail your focus. You discover what accelerates your momentum and what silently steals it. Tracking is the spotlight that exposes the difference between what I think is happening and what is actually happening. And in that exposure, clarity is born. Because clarity is not found in thinking. It's earned through observation. You observe your own life. You study it. You treat your habits like a scientist, not a spectator. You stop using willpower to fix problems you never defined. And instead you use data to decide. You don't need to guess what's working. You can see it. You don't need to argue with old habits. You can replace them because you know where they live. This is what makes you powerful. Not just capable, but strategic. You are no longer reactive. You are intentional. You are measured. You are designing your days with evidence, not emotion. And when you live like that, you gain the most terrifying strength of all. Accountability without external pressure. You don't need anyone to remind you to show up. The numbers do that. You don't need a boss breathing down your neck. Your own tracker holds the line. You don't need consequences because you've developed something far more potent. Internal consequence. You can't lie to yourself anymore because the data is staring you in the face. And once you've lived in that level of honesty, you can't go back to casual commitment. You stop tolerating days that don't count. You stop letting yourself off the hook. You stop saying, I'll start over Monday, because now you're always counting. Every decision, every hour, every behavior, every effort, it all adds up. You become the architect of your outcome. You become the builder of your own breakthrough. You stop praying for consistency because you've measured your way into it. And let me be clear, this is not about being perfect. It's about being precise. It's not about shame. It's about standards. It's not about controlling everything. It's about controlling what matters most. Your habits, your time, your effort, your execution. Because results are not random. They are the echo of everything you repeat. And if you track it, you can change it. If you track it, you can scale it. If you track it, you can own it. You become the kind of person who doesn't just hope things improve. You build the data, adjust the system, optimize the process, and guarantee the improvement. And when you do that long enough, when tracking becomes as natural as breathing, as essential as eating, as non-negotiable as integrity, you step into another realm. You are no longer just productive. You are unstoppable. Because now you don't just move forward, you multiply. Every action compounds. Every rep counts. Every day builds on the last. And you don't just get better, you get bulletproof. This is the discipline that doesn't fade. This is the mindset that doesn't fold. This is the strategy that scales legacy. Track your progress relentlessly. And one day you'll look back at the charts, at the checklists, at the notes, at the graphs, and realize this is how I built everything I said I wanted. Because when you've tracked your way to momentum, when the numbers start telling a story of discipline, when your habits turn into identity, when your effort leaves a digital trail of proof behind you, you realize something powerful. You are no longer someone trying to become. You are. You are no longer in pursuit of consistency. You live it. You're no longer searching for accountability. You are accountability, and it changes how you move through the world. You wake up with a sense of command, not noise, not panic, not scattered urgency, but quiet, unshakable authority, because you have evidence. And evidence breeds confidence deeper than any compliment ever could. You walk different. You think different. You expect more not just from the world, but from yourself. Because now, the gap between who you say you are and how you behave, it's closed. It's fused. It's locked. You speak from alignment. You act from integrity. You lead with presence. And people feel it. They don't even need to know the numbers. They feel the rhythm in how you speak, the weight in how you show up, the fire in your focus, the certainty in your stride. They ask, how do you stay consistent? You smile because consistency isn't a tactic anymore. It's who you've become. Because the moment you made tracking your law, the moment you decided that nothing you care about would go unmeasured, you stepped into mastery. Not mastery of outcomes, but of self, of your time, of your word, of your energy, of your becoming. This is why the greats build systems. This is why legends count what others ignore. Because they know you don't rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. And your standards are measured in the data. And now your life is a system, a scoreboard, a mirror. Every day you get feedback. Every day you get a vote. Every day you cast another tally toward the life you're building or the life you're tolerating. And as those tallies grow, you begin to touch something eternal. Influence. Because your discipline doesn't stay contained. It spills into your relationships, into your reputation, into the lives of people you'll never even meet. Because people aren't inspired by your goals. They're inspired by your grind, your grit, your grace under pressure, your willingness to count what matters when no one else was watching. That's influence, not charisma, not a following, but a frequency, a vibration you carry because you've walked with your metrics long enough to become their master. And one day, someone will tell you, I changed because I saw how consistent you were. I leveled up because your standards showed me what was possible. I started tracking because you made it real. And you'll realize this was never just about productivity. This was about legacy. A legacy of ownership, of clarity, of accountability, of radical honesty in a world addicted to illusion. You don't just live by feelings anymore. You live by facts, by feedback, by proof that cannot be faked. So keep going, keep tracking, keep measuring, keep refining, keep executing, because every box you check is a vote for who you're becoming. And when you track relentlessly, you don't just become successful, you become inevitable. Track your progress relentlessly and let the evidence write your name into history. 8, become obsessed with adding value. There is a moment in every journey, a silent, soul-splitting moment, where you realize the reason you feel unfulfilled, the reason you feel stuck, is because you've spent too much time trying to extract and not enough time trying to contribute. Because you can chase all the things the world told you to chase. Money, applause, titles, attention. But if your life isn't useful, if your gifts aren't serving, if your presence isn't lifting something higher than yourself, then no amount of success will fill the void. You were not built to just succeed. You were built to matter. You were built to multiply. You were built to show up in such a way that when people leave your presence, they're better, stronger, clearer, more inspired, more committed to their own greatness because they encountered yours. That's value. And until you become obsessed with adding it, you will never experience what it means to live fully aligned. You can't fake this. You can't manufacture this with charisma. This is not about being nice or polite or impressive. This is about being dangerous in the most powerful way because your value becomes impossible to ignore. The question is, what do you do to every room you enter? Do you take the energy? Or do you bring it? Do you wait for direction? Or do you deliver clarity? Do you hope someone notices you? Or do you become so valuable that they couldn't forget you if they tried? That is what separates the ordinary from the legendary. The world doesn't remember who tried to fit in. It remembers those who made something better. And you can't do that unless you shift your focus from self-promotion to service, from how can I win today to how can I serve today, from what can I get to what can I give relentlessly, intentionally, unreasonably. Because when you lead with value, everything follows. Respect, opportunity, influence, income, impact. They are not the result of pursuit. They are the result of contribution. Jim Rohn said it best. You don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you bring to the hour. So don't just show up. Don't just clock in. Don't just deliver the minimum. Dominate with value. Let your preparation show. Let your depth be felt. Let your excellence become your trademark. And let your obsession with adding value become the thing that sets your soul on fire and your legacy in motion. Because once you operate from that place, you're no longer replaceable. You're no longer forgettable. You're no longer one of many. You are the one they call when it matters. And that is the most powerful currency in the world. Because once you truly decide that value is your obsession, everything inside you begins to rearrange. Not slowly, not gently, but violently, righteously, permanently. Your mindset sharpens. You stop asking, what do I deserve? And start asking, what am I delivering? You stop focusing on how to look important and start living in a way that makes you impossible to ignore. Your mind, once distracted by the trivial, becomes anchored to the essential because now your thoughts are no longer wandering through comfort and convenience. They're strategically aimed at contribution. You think in value. You speak in value. You move with the quiet power of someone who knows. The greatest force in the marketplace, in leadership, in life, is the person who solves real problems with relentless excellence. And once that mindset locks in, your identity evolves. You no longer call yourself a dreamer. You become a deliverer. You don't chase status. You become a standard. The type of person who doesn't just complete tasks. You elevate environments. You don't ask for opportunity. You manufacture it by over-delivering in silence, long before anyone thought to applaud. Because when value is your identity, you no longer fear obscurity. You no longer measure progress by popularity. You measure it by impact, by the ripple effect of how many lives you shift, how many rooms you change, how many souls you unlock, just by showing up as someone who's too valuable to ignore. This identity, this obsession sets you free because you're no longer playing the game by the old rules. You're not trying to win attention. You're winning respect. You're not trying to climb the ladder. You build ladders for others to rise. And in doing so, you unlock the deepest kind of purpose, service-driven significance. You start waking up differently, with fire, with urgency, with the conviction of someone who knows that today is another opportunity to make yourself useful to something bigger than yourself. You stop waiting to be chosen. You stop hesitating to speak. You stop apologizing for taking up space because you know that what you carry can help someone break free. That's the power of being obsessed with value. It makes your presence transformational, not because you tried to be impressive, but because your very existence says, I'm not here to impress. I'm here to impact. And impact changes everything. It opens doors. It earns trust. It builds relationships rooted in truth, not transaction. It creates loyalty that no algorithm can compete with. And it brings you what chasing never could. Peace. Peace that you're living on purpose. Peace that you're not wasting your breath on vanity. Peace that you are giving the world the best of you, not the safe version, not the rehearsed version. The useful version, and that usefulness, that's your path to freedom. Because value makes you recession-proof. Value makes you unforgettable. Value makes you independent. Not just financially, but mentally, spiritually, existentially. It gives you the power to walk into any room, any industry, any opportunity, and tilt the room in your favor. Because you are the one who can move things forward. That's the highest kind of wealth, the rarest kind of power. And it's available the moment you stop asking, what's in it for me? And start delivering what others didn't even know they needed. Because when you become a person of undeniable value, not by accident, but by design, the world cannot help but respond. Opportunities start finding you, not because of luck, but because you became irreplaceable, because you mastered the rarest art in the marketplace, making things better, faster, sharper, clearer, deeper. Your name starts getting passed around in rooms you've never entered because someone said, if you want it done right, call them. That's what value does. It turns your reputation into a force of nature. It makes you magnetic, and not just for money, for meaning, for movement, for the kind of influence that outlives your presence. Because people forget products. They forget ads. They forget noise. But they never forget a person who solved something for them, who saw them, who served them, who shifted something inside of them by giving more than was asked, by showing up not to take, but to transform. That's how legacies are built. Not through volume, through value. Not through hype, through help. Not through trying to be remembered, but through the audacity to make someone else's life better. You see, your value is not in your title. It's not in your following. It's not in your status. It's in your effect. What happens when you enter a space? What changes when you touch a project? What shifts when you speak? This is not about adding more noise to the world. It's about becoming so useful that silence would be a disservice. Because when you stop living for applause and start living for advancement, for building, for healing, for teaching, for leading, you graduate from influence to immortality. Your work becomes timeless. Your words echo through people you've never met. Your energy becomes a reference point for how greatness should show up. And the best part? It compounds. Because when you add value, you don't just help someone once, you elevate them permanently. They rise because you gave, and then they give, and they rise again, and then they give, and the chain reaction begins. You won't need a plaque. You won't need a headline. You'll have something better. Impact that multiplies without your permission. Because you became obsessed with adding value in every conversation, in every decision, in every moment. You had the chance to either take up space or add something to it. And now your life speaks when you're not in the room. Now your work walks ahead of you. Now your influence is baked into the very structure of everything you've touched. So if you want to build a life that matters, I don't just hustle. Don't just chase. Don't just shine. Contribute with depth, with focus, with fire, with reverence, and do it so relentlessly, so intentionally, so consistently, that your very existence becomes a solution. Because that's what value is. That's what you were born to give. Become obsessed with adding value, and the world will make room for you. It never offered to anyone else. 9. Say no with conviction. There's a quiet tragedy that happens every day. People say yes, not out of desire, not out of purpose, but out of fear. Fear of conflict, fear of missing out, fear of being misunderstood, fear of disappointing others. And in doing so, they betray the one person they can't afford to lose, themselves. Because every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon something sacred. You dilute your power. You fracture your focus. You scatter your energy across obligations that were never yours to carry. You become available to everyone except the future you're trying to build. You become loyal to everyone's urgency except your own purpose. You smile while shrinking. You accommodate while unraveling. You become agreeable on the surface, but resentful in your spirit. And one day, you look around and realize you've become a prisoner of politeness, a servant to obligation, a stranger to your own priorities. This is why you must learn to say no, not with hesitation, not with guilt, but with conviction. Because no is not rejection. No is direction. It's how you protect your path. It's how you preserve your peace. It's how you make room for what matters most. You cannot be everything to everyone, but you can be true to the vision that keeps you up at night. You can be loyal to the mission that calls your name. You can build a life that aligns so deeply with who you are that you no longer feel the need to explain it to anyone. But it starts with boundaries. It starts with boldness. It starts with understanding that a weak yes is far more damaging than a strong no. And this isn't about being rude. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being clear. Clarity is kindness. Clarity is confidence. Clarity says, I honor you enough to be honest with you, and I honor me enough to protect my energy. When you say no with conviction, you stop apologizing for evolving. You stop shrinking to fit in. You stop explaining your priorities to people who were never meant to understand your calling. You say, no, I'm not available for that. No, that doesn't align with where I'm going. No, I can't take that on because I'm building something that requires my full focus. And every time you say it, you strengthen your spine. You reinforce your identity. You reclaim the hours, the energy, the emotional real estate you used to give away like spare change. Because when you say no to the wrong things, you create space for the right ones. You create room for depth, room for mastery, room for rest, creativity, health, purpose. You create a life that's no longer shaped by obligation, but by intention. You start saying yes to what ignites you, yes to what stretches you, yes to what aligns with your core, yes to the vision you wrote down when no one was looking, yes to the habits that elevate, yes to the standards that sharpen, yes to the version of you that doesn't settle anymore. Because the more intentional you become with your no, the more powerful your yes becomes. And that's what this life requires of you. To be selective with your attention, to be strategic with your time, to be unapologetic about the cost of your calling. So protect it. Say no with conviction. Say it without flinching. Say it without explanation. Say it because your destiny is not a group project. Say it because pleasing everyone is a recipe for becoming no one. Say it because the future you're building requires you to be all in, not half scattered, half guilty, half alive. The people who truly value you will respect your no. The ones who don't were only ever interested in your convenience, not your calling. Let them go. You were not born to be busy. You were not born to be agreeable. You were not born to carry a calendar filled with everything except yourself. You were born to build, to contribute, to expand, to live in such alignment that your time becomes sacred and your yes becomes a gift that's never given carelessly. So from this day forward, every time you are faced with a decision, every time you are tempted to bend, ask yourself, does this move me closer to who I'm becoming? Is this worthy of my focus? Does this serve the vision I committed to? And if the answer is no, say it. Say it loud. Say it clear. Say it with the kind of strength that reminds you that your voice is not up for sale. Because the moment you master your no, you reclaim your life. Because when your boundaries are built from conviction, your life begins to take shape. Not as a reflection of the world's demands, but as a reflection of your design. You stop moving through life on autopilot. You stop bending to urgency, disguised as importance. You stop letting noise dictate your direction. And for the first time, you begin to see clearly. Because clarity isn't a luxury. It's the result of discipline. And discipline begins with your no. It's the line in the sand that says, I will not be everything for everyone, but I will be everything I'm supposed to be for the mission that's mine to carry. And every time you draw that line, every time you say no to distraction, to mediocrity, to people who only value you when you're useful to them, you reclaim the only thing that can never be replaced, your attention, because your attention is the soil where greatness grows. Whatever you water, grows. Whatever you tolerate, expands. And whatever you entertain repeatedly, becomes who you are. So say no with the precision of someone who understands that their life is a masterpiece, not a mess of unfinished obligations. This is where your discipline sharpens. This is where you begin to choose your hours like a minimalist chooses possessions. This is where your calendar stops being a cage and starts becoming a weapon. Every block of time now serves a purpose. Every minute has a mission. You stop reacting. You respond. You own your schedule because you own your standards. And that ownership bleeds into every part of you. You feel it when you walk. You hear it in your tone. You show up with a kind of presence that doesn't scream for attention. It commands it. Because now, you don't just look focused. You are focused. You don't just appear disciplined. You are disciplined. Not because of willpower, but because of clarity. And that clarity changes how you see yourself. You no longer identify as someone who gets overwhelmed. You're someone who decides. You no longer tell yourself you're bad at boundaries. You're someone who protects what matters. You don't identify as a people pleaser anymore. You're someone who tells the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you connection with those who are only ever interested in your compliance. You don't need that kind of validation anymore because you've built something stronger than approval. You've built integrity. And when your integrity becomes unshakable, your value skyrockets. Your energy returns. Your creativity awakens. Your voice deepens. Your identity anchors. You stop seeking peace because you become it. This is the power of no. The power of conviction over comfort. The power of a life that finally aligns, not because the world got easier, but because you got clearer. So keep saying it. Say it with grace. Say it with fire. Say it with the calm authority of someone who knows that their future is too important to forfeit for momentary convenience. Because your greatest work will never be built in a life filled with yeses to the wrong things. Protect your edge. Preserve your power. Guard your genius. And remember, your no is not a wall. It's a gate. It doesn't just keep things out. It creates sacred space for everything that's meant to come in. Say no with conviction and watch what enters your life. When you finally make room for what was meant for you. Because once you seal your no in the foundation of your life, not just in your words, but in your habits, your relationships, your very rhythm, you don't just reclaim your time. You reclaim your destiny. You no longer chase potential. You manifest it. You no longer drown in the pressure to be everywhere. You thrive by being deeply rooted somewhere that matters. You become a person whose presence is rare, not because you're unavailable, but because you're undistracted. You move through your day like someone on assignment, not someone available for convenience. And people will feel it. They'll feel the shift. They'll notice how you no longer explain your boundaries. You simply enforce them. You don't debate your decisions. You honor them. You don't defend your standards. You embody them. Because when your no becomes rooted in conviction, you stop negotiating with low standards. You stop managing chaos that doesn't belong to you. You stop inheriting the drama of those who have no discipline over their own life. You return to the sacred space of self-respect. And that self-respect, it touches everything. It elevates your conversations. It filters your relationships. It purifies your intentions. It magnetizes the kind of people who don't need you to abandon yourself to feel supported. Now your tribe changes. Not because you're better than them, but because your clarity repels anything less than aligned. The ones who stay, the ones who rise with you, they get it. They're builders. They're protectors. They're creators of peace, not consumers of your energy. That's what happens when you learn to say no with conviction. You attract alignment, not obligation, not chaos, not compromise disguised as opportunity, but real alignment, grounded, pure, clean. You create a new orbit, and only what's built for your next level survives in it. And that's where legacy begins. Because legacy isn't built by those who say yes to everything. It's built by those who sacrifice the immediate to protect what's eternal, by those who choose depth over approval, by those who reject distraction, so they can deliver something immortal. Your legacy is not what you say. It's not what you post. It's the residue of your decisions, the echo of your standards, the trail of courage left behind when you said no to the noise and yes to the mission. So say it boldly. Say it calmly. Say it again and again until your nervous system no longer panics when you protect your peace. Say no with conviction, not as rebellion, but as reverence. Reverence for your future. Reverence for your capacity. Reverence for the miracle. That is your attention and what it's capable of when it's fully intact. And when people ask you, why don't you do more? Why don't you show up everywhere? Why are you so selective now? Smile. Not because you owe them an explanation, but because you finally have an answer that's true. You say, because I know what I'm building. And what I'm building can't survive on a diet of constant compromise. That's your power. That's your freedom. That's your legacy. Say no with conviction and become the kind of person who lives every day on purpose, on fire, and untouchable by distraction. 10, see every day as a life sentence or a life investment. Every single day, you are writing your story. You are either strengthening your future or sentencing yourself to the same cycle. There is no neutral. There is no pause. You are either building momentum or breaking it. So treat today like it matters, because it does. The hours you waste become the years you regret, but the hours you own, they become the decades you celebrate. So stop waiting for permission. Stop hoping for the right mood. Stop looking for the cheat code. You have it. It's called habit. It's called decision. It's called urgency. It's called you. Build these 10 habits into the rhythm of your life. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now. Because success doesn't wait. And neither should you. Because the 10 habits are not the destination. They are the ignition. The beginning of your transformation, not the end. They are the tools, the blades, the chisels. But what you sculpt with them, what you forge with their fire, that becomes your life's architecture. Now, let's go deeper, because habits without belief are hollow. They'll collapse under the first weight of resistance. They'll wither when no one is watching. So what do you truly believe about yourself? Not what you post, not what you perform, but what you whisper to yourself when it's 3 a.m. and your soul won't sleep. If your habits are the engine, your belief is the fuel. And if the fuel is tainted, the engine dies. No matter how well it's built, you cannot build a strong life on weak belief. You cannot run fast with chains of self-doubt tied to your ankles. You must believe without apology that you are capable, worthy, designed for greatness. Not because life owes it to you, but because you're willing to earn it. Belief isn't just confidence. It's certainty forged through decision. It's saying, this is who I am, and nothing will pull me back into who I was. It's drawing the line in the sand and daring life to cross it. You must believe that your work matters, that your words carry weight, that your ideas are sacred, that your gifts were not given for you to bury them beneath fear. And that belief must be followed by something even more rare, clarity. Because belief without direction is a loaded gun without a target. You must get crystal clear on where you are going. Clarity is not just knowing your goal. It's knowing why it matters. It's knowing what you are willing to sacrifice for it and what you will never sacrifice for it. Clarity means you stop chasing approval. Clarity means you stop comparing your lane. Clarity means you wake up and know exactly what to do. Not because someone told you, but because your vision told you. Vision is what you see when your eyes are closed. It's the picture in your spirit that won't go away. It's the calling that keeps showing up in your silence. It's the voice that says, you were made for more. But listen, vision doesn't work unless you do. The gap between vision and reality is discipline. Discipline is the bridge. Discipline is the proof. Discipline is what shows the world that your dream wasn't just a fantasy. It was a forecast. And real discipline isn't forced. It's flow. When your habits align with your belief and your belief aligns with your vision, discipline becomes devotion. You no longer need motivation. You become movement. You no longer need reminders. You are the reminder. And when you move like that, with belief as your fire, clarity as your compass, discipline as your proof, then something begins to shift in your spirit. You become dangerous, not because you're reckless, but because you're unshakable. You begin to build a life that even storms respect. You begin to radiate a presence that no one can ignore. But don't stop there, because even the strongest fire needs fuel. Even the fiercest warrior needs stillness. That fuel is gratitude, not the soft kind, not the cliche kind, not the surface level thankfulness for what's easy. I'm talking about warrior's gratitude, the kind that thanks the struggle for sharpening you, the kind that blesses the delay for making you deeper, the kind that bows to every betrayal and says, you did not break me, you revealed me. Gratitude is not passive. It's not weak. It's not just about journaling blessings. It's about worshiping the process. It's about finding beauty in the breaking. It's about realizing you didn't have to go through it. You got to. And when gratitude takes root in your soul, life bends in your favor. Not because it got easier, but because you got wiser. You stop wasting time on blame. You stop resenting what made you You stop wishing for a new life and start mastering the one you've got. And that mastery requires one more habit: adaptability. Because no matter how strong your plan, life will flip the script. The market will shift. People will leave. Unexpected storms will hit hard and fast. And you must pivot. You must evolve. You must be willing to let go of methods, but never the mission. Adaptability is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's not surrendering your values. It's redeploying your weapons. It's not about surviving. It's about shifting without losing your center. And when you live like that, when your life becomes this living, breathing fusion of belief, vision, discipline, gratitude, and adaptability, you become resilient. You don't break. You bend. You don't fear storms. You forecast them. You prepare. You endure. You rise again. That's when you stop chasing success, because success starts chasing you. Because resilience is not about bouncing back. It's about rising forward. It's not simply surviving the fire. It's learning to walk through it like it's yours, like it was made for your evolution, like the flames were never there to consume you, but to reveal you. You see, life doesn't test the weak. It tests the ready. And every setback is not a rejection. It's a refinement. It's a question from life itself asking, how bad do you want it? How much will you endure before you decide you've earned it? Can I trust you with the weight of greatness? Because greatness is heavy, and resilience is the muscle that carries it. Resilience is the habit of not asking if you'll win, but when. Not asking how long it will take, but how strong you'll become while waiting. Resilience is falling 7 times and rising 8 with fire in your eyes and purpose in your chest. But you can only become resilient if you become a learner, not just someone who reads, but someone who absorbs, someone who sees failure not as a full stop, but as feedback, someone who understands that every no is a lesson, every delay a masterclass, every loss a syllabus on self-leadership. Learning isn't a task. It's a trait. It's a hunger you never outgrow. It's curiosity that won't sit down. It's asking yourself better questions every day. What is this here to teach me? What belief must I kill to level up? What part of me must evolve so I stop cycling through the same struggle? The wise don't just live. They study life as they live it. They observe, they reflect, they apply, and in doing so, they get better, faster, stronger, quicker. And that speed is what separates winners from wanderers. Because you don't need more time. You need more growth per moment. You don't need another chance. You need to become someone who can capitalize when it comes. And that brings us to the summit, the final ascent. The reason this all matters: legacy. You see, you were not born just to make a living. You were born to leave a mark. You were not created to pass time. You were created to shift it, to shift perspectives, to shift energy, to shift the trajectory of those who watch you in silence, hoping you prove it's possible. You don't build legacy by accident. You build it intentionally. You build it in the way you show up, in the standards you set, in the conversations you have when there's nothing to gain, in the promises you keep when there's no spotlight. Legacy is not about what you leave behind. It's about what you leave within the hearts you've impacted, within the minds you've expanded, within the systems you've upgraded by living differently. Legacy is a whisper, a frequency, a pulse in the universe that says, you can do more. You are more. I saw it. I lived it. Now it's your turn. So, rise. Not for claps. Not for credit. Not for comfort. Rise because the world is watching, even when it pretends it isn't, even when it turns away, even when it doubts you. Especially then, rise for the ones who gave up too early. Rise for the ones who are still doubting their worth. Rise for the younger version of you who once whispered, maybe I was made for more. Show them. Prove it. And not with speeches, with standards, with execution, with presence. Because one day, you won't be in the room. And when that day comes, when decisions are made, when names are brought up, when stories are told, your life will still be speaking. Not in volume, in vibration. And that vibration will echo through time, through generations, through souls. Because you didn't just chase success. You embodied it. You didn't just talk about habits. You became them. You didn't just dream. You built. You bled. You became. Live that life. Live it fully. Live it now. Because success doesn't wait. And neither should you. Live a life that moves fast, deep, and forever. Live a life that speaks when you're not in the room.